Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. I'm Angela Wolf, and welcome to At Your Side Virtually. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a Brother Brand Ambassador and taking over Brother Sew's Facebook and YouTube pages on the sewing and crafting side. Today, we have an awesome show for you today. My dear friend Joanne Banko is going to be on, and she has some tips for you about embroidery. This is going to be wonderful. So if you like to embroider, even like itsy bitsy projects, you're a super beginner or super advanced, you'll always pick up something from Joanne. So say hi, say hi. If you've never been here before, by the way, we have a great sewing community here. Some are fishing too, by the way. They always log in at the beginning and log out. So hi, all my fishing friends. But say hi, say where you're from. You never know, your neighbor might be right next to you, which many people have met that way. So I see you all rolling in. So it sounds like Arnell loves embroidery, and it sounds like you can hear and see me. So let's not make Joanne wait. I cannot wait to see her. Hi, Joanne.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to see you. It's been a while.
It has. I love hanging out with you on Saturdays, though. And I have to admit, Joanne, I missed this Saturday show. We were fishing and we were too far out. I couldn't get a signal. And I was like, oh, Win, could we go in a little bit closer so I could get my internet? No, he said no.
Well, those Saturday get-togethers have been a lot of fun. I've missed a couple too myself. I mean, sometimes you got something going on Saturday. You can't be there. But I try whenever I can. And we've got a great group there. So if anybody hasn't been there yet, join us Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time on the Brother Sew's Facebook page.
And right now we're on season 15 because we had a little lull. And next, Joanne, as soon as the season's finished, we're going to wrap up. We're going to go to season 2100 that a lot of people haven't seen yet, which is going to be very exciting.
That is wonderful. That'll be the freshest, newest stuff. Although, You know what? In sewing, I think we all have to say nothing ever gets old. Nothing ever gets dated. Because it's the tried and true principles that we use over and over and over again. So, you can learn something from everything. So
you look wonderful. You make your outfit.
Thank you. I'm wearing my favorite color.
It's a good one, and your necklace matches perfectly. So I know your topic today is embroidery, and there are so many of the Brother fans that have embroidery machines, even from the very, very beginner to the creme de la creme, the luminaire. But embroidery is such an easy thing to do. It's a fashion statement nowadays. And there's never been a better time to get on that right now, except to now.
There's a machine for every budget, really and truly. I mean, if you are interested in embroidery, get out there and shop, visit your dealer. They may have some trade-ins. Just look around, because it used to be in the old days. I mean, when I first started, I've been embroidering for about 30 years now, believe it or not. I got in really on the ground floor. I remember talking to people. I was working somewhere where we didn't have embroidery capability, and the newest embroidery had kind of come out, and people started talking about it. And I was like, I got to go check that out. So it didn't take long before I got into it. But, back in those days, there was nothing but pretty much high end. And today we've got everything from starter level to top of the line. So don't miss out. If you're interested, just get out there and start shopping. You'll find something, I'm sure.
Awesome. So speaking of embroidery, you have some really good tips for us today.
I do. Today's going to be a real tips and tricks session, and definitely, I'm sure we'll probably get some. I almost said phone calls.
Hey, that would be really fun. We actually could do phone calls sometime, but not today.
That would be fun, wouldn't it? To have that would be great for Q&A. But definitely, if while I'm talking today, you come up with some questions, feel free to shoot them in, and we'll do our best to answer them. If we don't get them now, we'll get them later. And don't forget, if you can always. You know how to get a hold of Angela. You're going to know how to get a hold of me. If you have a question and you didn't get it answered, please just reach out. I'm happy every day. I'm answering questions from somebody. So please reach out. We want to help you. We want you.
And I actually put, in case you're new to the party, I put Brother's website, mine, and Joanne's down below. You can have access to our YouTube channels, all of that. Now, by the way, if you're just hopping in, you haven't missed a thing. We're just starting. Those of you that want to make sure you watch the replay, if you're on Facebook, make sure to share it to your page. It's easy to find that way. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and you can come back and binge watch anytime. I think we're up to over 200 videos now that you could spend the whole weekend, a rainy weekend.
Absolutely. There's lots of good information out there. Absolutely.
All right, Joanne.
Something for everybody. So today we're going to talk 10 I'm going to talk about 10 tips for improving your embroidery to prevent puckers. What I call the dreaded puckers. So raise your hand out there if you've had puckered embroidery. It happens to the best of us. So, you know, I mean, some of it's a learning curve. Some of it's just, you know, it just happens. But I guess I want to start by saying it's always best to test. I mean, that's like if I had to embroider that and put it above my sewing door, it is always best to test. And there's that old saying, you know, there are those that test, and there are those that wish they would have. So keep that in mind when we're talking. And let me, you know, tell you a little bit more what I mean by that. Now, obviously, if you do a lot of T-shirts, which are a really popular item to embroider on, think about maybe purchasing an extra, less expensive one, or maybe you've got a T-shirt that, you know, you don't really care about it a whole lot. Use the back of it, whatever, and use that for your test. If you're doing some garment construction, I mean, that's I guess if you put me in a corner and said, what's your favorite thing to do? It would be to construct a garment from scratch and add embroidery to it. And when you follow that method, you have the opportunity to play with the fabric before you actually put it into a garment. I know, Angela, you've done tons of that. We'd both be like, if we were on a desert island and somebody said that's all you could do, we'd never be bored, right?
No, we wouldn't. And a desert island would be good because I could go fishing on my break time. That's a great idea, Joanne.
You could get our food for us, and I could, you know, prepare for the sewing party when you came back. But it's true that, you know, you really want to test on the like circumstances. So the same fabric, the same stabilizer, the same design. Now, do I always do that? If I'm stitching out a design that I've done something very similar with it previously, no, I'm not going to do it, you know, because I've already basically been there, done that. But if I'm testing out something new, a new design, I'm pretty much almost always going to make a sample, at least partial, so that I can see how it reacts. So when you're talking about, you know, constructing garments from scratch, it's really easy to buy extra fabric and just test on a piece of fabric. If you're doing ready-mades, though, you know, it's not so hard these days with fabrics that are available. Go to the fabric store, take your garment with you, and just look for something similar and buy a quarter of a yard or half a yard or whatever, and use that for testing. So there just really is no substitute for that. Can't recommend that.
I agree. And, you know, I think one of the things that really catches people is if they're not sewing from scratch and they're going to embroider on their jeans or something like that. And there are so many other ways, you know, obviously you wouldn't maybe not have the fabric for that to be able to test the exact. If you're sewing from scratch, it's so easy. You just have an extra piece of fabric. But, you know, there's so many places you can buy, just use things to just test it.
Thrift store. That's another great option. If you have access to thrift stores and you can, you know, shop that avenue. Definitely. Truth be told, I've been known to buy some thrift store items and use them as samples when, you know, on the Brothers sponsored It's So Easy TV show, because maybe I didn't have time to do some extra things there and just wanted to do some testing. So, you know, it works. Another thing for testing is, you know, in my many years of seeing everybody else's, including my own, embroidery glitches, I've had people come in at different times, you know, and show me something and say, you know, there's something wrong with this design because I stitched it out on, you know, this, that, or the other, and it you know, the registration was off. And what we mean by registration is when you have an outline around it and it's supposed to outline usually at the end and it misses. So what I always tell people, if you find that kind of circumstance, chances are, unless the design was a free design that, you know, your next door neighbor made and she really doesn't know how to digitize. Chances are these days, you know, our designs are so well made. And if they're built into the machine, you know they're good designs. If they come from Brother Embroidery site, you know they're good designs. There are a lot of reputable design companies out there. So if you had an issue with the design, what I recommend you do is take a good piece of craft felt. So when I say good piece, because if you go to buy felt, you're going to probably find at least two grades. One is a higher grade that's a little bit more expensive and it's more dense, it's less see-through. And hoop that with a piece of cutaway stabilizer. Let me grab my cutaway here. So this is one of the brother, this is the, I think they call it medium. You know, once I get the labels off, I forget all the different ones. But if you look, it's the only one that looks like this. It's the white. It's very stable but very flexible. And if you hoop a piece of felt with this stabilizer and stitch out that design, it's in all likelihood going to come out absolutely perfect. So what that tells you is when you stitched it out on whatever else that you had the issue with, the problem was not the design. The problem was something else, you know, maybe not a good marriage of design and fabric. And we're going to talk about that, but whatever it is, that's another way to test. So if you haven't done that before, I highly recommend that. When your registration is off or your outline isn't matching up, chances are it's a problem with the combination with the design and the fabric that you're using it on. So,
you know, Joanne, that is such a good tip for a couple things. One, when you test it on that felt, if you test it on the felt and then you think it's automatically going to work on your other fabric, you just explained, no, it might not. But that will tell you at least if the design is decent. But I think a lot of people get in the habit of testing it on felt, at least that's what I get in my little notes. And then they think it's automatically going to work on their project. And you just made that very clear. No.
Right. It still means you're going to have to follow some other guidelines. I hate to say rules because they're really, you know, that's the other beauty of sewing. There really aren't a lot of rules that you have to follow, and you know, whatever, if it works for, and besides, you know, let me start by saying this too. If it works for you, then don't pay attention to anything that I'm telling you, because, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, come up with a different way or a new way or different way. I'm only telling you what has always worked for me in all the years, you know, of my experience. But there are many, many products out there and many ways to do things. So don't feel at all like I'm saying, oh, you got to do it this way. And if you're not, then you're doing it the wrong way. Okay.
And you know what? That's good to know too, because a lot of us like to just come up with new ways of things. And now, but Joanne, you are I would consider you one of the experts in the embroidery industry. So I cherish your tips and techniques. So those of you watching, if you've never seen Joanne before, this isn't her first time. She's a queen at this.
Well, we all learn by doing, right? Doesn't matter what it is, whether you're playing music or, you know, I've never been musical. I know you are, so you've got that in your repertoire too. But I've always felt like, you know, operating a sewing machine and doing projects better and better all the time is kind of like what you would do if you were trying to learn to play an instrument. You're just going to keep practicing and practicing and practicing. You're not going to hit every note perfectly, but you're going to keep going until you get a nice melody there.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So, oops, I didn't mean to take you out.
No, that's okay.
I was trying to bring your screen up.
Let's just whip through these 10 tips. Just, you know, real kind of like shortcut version. And then what I'd like to do is go through and show some samples, and then maybe we'll get some input from the samples. So compatibility is key. You know, that's my number one tip. Now, these are not in any particular, you know, first order, just a tip of just a sheet of 10 tips. So compatibility is key. Match your design density and your fabric weight. Carefully consider your placement. Use bonded backing on thin or stretchy fabrics. Add interfacing or batting, and then float tearaway underneath the hoop if it works with your project. Stitch on a separate piece and then add it to your project. Basically, we're talking doing an applique. Stiffen your fabric with liquid washout stabilizer or even starch. So let me just talk about that for just a minute, because I don't really have any real samples of that to show you, but there are liquids available. And again, we're not getting into brand names here, but you could just Google, you know, you can do a quick internet search and find things like that. Check your local dealer and see what they have. There are at least two that I have used regularly. Basically, you either brush on or spray on to your fabric and you let it dry, and then you iron it. Some, they actually want you to iron it until it's dry. But what it does is it makes your fabric feel like paper. And if you've ever embroidered on paper, we don't do a whole lot of embroidery on paper unless a design is made for that, because it perforates. But paper basically doesn't move, it doesn't stretch, it doesn't flex, it doesn't have grain. so it stays really stable in the hoop. So by using this liquid, you are basically giving your fabric a paper-like feel. And it works best on, in my opinion, on like quilt weight cottons. So I don't know if we've got too many out here that are doing embroidery on quilts. I've done a fair amount of that. But if you're embroidering on that weight of fabric, believe it or not, that's one of the hardest fabrics to get successfully embroidered, unless you do some additions to it. So by adding that liquid stabilizer, you're just going to beef it up a little bit. You could still add your batting. That liquid type stabilizer washes out. So, it's done. Now, again, I'm just going to go back to that testing thing. Remember, everything I say, if it's a product that you're adding to your fabric, test it first, whether you're using certain marking pens or certain stabilizers. Test it out and make sure before you do it on your real thing that everything goes away and it looks good when you're all done. But that certainly is a way to firm up your fabric. You can also even use ordinary like spray starch, the kind we used to, when people like their shirts real crispy and all that kind of thing. In that case, though, you're probably going to have to do multiple layers. So that means spray, iron, spray, iron, spray, iron, spray, iron, probably at least 3 times to give it a little bit of body. But that's another way to firm up fabric, just give it a little bit extra beefy quality, okay? So let's see, what are we on? I think we're on number 7.
Sorry about that. I'm reading. I just gotta tell you, I'm listening to this because I'm reading some comments. And when you were talking about quilting, was quite a few people that said they are really getting into what we call quilt embroidery, which is one of my favorites ever. And what you just gave tips for was wonderful there. And I was reading this. Debbie says she was ready to quit embroidering, that she started watching the brother videos, and when it doesn't work out, it's 100% on me. Oh, Debbie, don't be too hard on yourself.
It's a thing. It's a thing that happens.
I know that it's happened to probably all of us.
Absolutely. Debbie, just, if at first you don't succeed, so again. That'd be another good motto, wouldn't it? If at first you don't succeed, sew it again. Let's talk about that quilt embroidery for a minute, though, because I only picked 10 today because we only have an hour, right? We could do a workshop on this where we could take a half a day. That might be a fun thing to try sometime in the future, where people did some hands-on things and saw, the difference it made. But when I think of quilt embroidery, this is kind of my vision of it, is you're doing an embroidery design on fabric, and it is in all likelihood going to have some sort of a fill stitch around it. So that could be a stipple stitch. It could be one of the fancy fills that we have in the Brother machine. So it's basically doing a background, and it could be a background with a embroidery design somewhere in the center and the background is surrounding it, or it could just be a block of background only. And when we do things like that, we are in all likelihood going to use batting as a backing. And batting as a backing is one of my all-time favorite ways to beef up that same cotton fabric that we're talking about. It also does another thing for you, which I've got a sample of to show you. It gives you what I like to call, this is my crazy terminology, planned puckers. Okay, so what in the world is a planned pucker? Well, while we're talking about it, I'll just go ahead and grab this and show you this.
Let me bring you up closer here. There you go.
Cuff there, okay? It's a little bit shiny, but that cuff is embroidered on silk du peony. And what I did is, silk du peony is light and soft, and I wanted to do a lot of heavy embroidery designs on there. So I layered it with flannel instead of batting, and then I pre-quilted it just by doing what I call channel stitching. So kind of a diamond effect, in each direction. And what I did by doing that is I caused the fabric to actually pucker a little bit. Are you seeing the puckers a little?
It's a little bit shiny, Joanne. Can you bring it any closer?
Yeah.
I don't want to mess up your beautiful display. Oh, that's much better. Okay, higher. There you go. Yay. Now we can see that. Oh, yes.
So you can see it's bumpy.
Uh-huh.
It's bumpy. It's textured. So what I did is that's my planned puckers. Instead of trying to embroider on that silk dupioni with those designs, I did it on the collar as well, and have it pucker, I pre-puckered the fabric and then embroidered my designs on top of it. So I actually wanted that little bit of shrinkage, that little bit of crinkly, and it's kind of almost like the art of camouflage, because you're going to look at that and you're going to go, well, it's supposed to look that way. So you're not, instead of looking at it and saying, oh, that's all puckery, you look at, hey, it's textured instead. So yeah. That's just another way to do it. So I don't know if I'd love to know if anybody's ever tried that technique. It kind of came sort of by, one of those like desperation times where I really wanted to make that robe with the, fancy collar and the fancy cuff. And I wanted to do it out of that slinky fabric. And it was like, I had to use that particular design. It was a sample that I was making. It was from a collection where all of the designs were dense. They were beautiful, but they were dense. So like, how in the world am I going to accomplish this? So flannel makes a good backing too, but it will kind of, pucker up a little bit, especially when it's washed. So if batting though will make a good substitute. Sometimes I'll use fusible batting on my entire piece of cotton fabric, back to the whole quilt embroidery cotton idea.
I use that a lot. I love that.
and what I do, we've all got our ways. We've all got our methods to madness. I will fuse that fusible craft fleece is basically what it is. It's highly available. I will fuse it
right here, Joanne, if you need me to show it.
Why don't you grab it? Why don't you grab it?
I will.
So what that is it's just a thin batting, fleece batting. It's kind of crazy that it's called fleece, because when we think of fleece, I think of, jacket type fleece, that kind of thing, but it's called fleece. It's got a really good fusible bonding agent on it. And if you fuse it rather lightly, it stays a little puffy. It's still thin, but it stays a little bit puffy. But if you give it a really good smash with the iron, with really good steam, it bonds it really, really good for one thing, but it also flattens it out a little bit. So it's kind of giving you a thinner version that isn't available if you tried to go to the store and say, I would like this in a thinner version. Well, I will use that, and then I will often use, if I'm doing a quilt block, I will often use another whole layer of batting then when I'm putting together the quilt or the wall hanging or whatever it is. So that's just giving it, again, a little bit of extra body, and it's going to help hold up that design really well. And then when you do the the rest of it, you're just adding another layer. So
I lied, Joanne.
That's okay. No problem.
I put it away. What I had here was I'm working on a project that has insulation on the inside, heating, to give you an idea for the kitchen. But it looks exactly, I thought the same bolt was here. So I organized. Sorry, I can't show it to you in person.
And the beauty of that product too, that's, a type of material is it doesn't shrink. Because I see a question here. Will the method that I used for the puckering, will it reduce the shrinkage of the flannel? I really don't know. I would say probably somewhat, because all of that stitching is, holding it in place. It's almost like kind of like clamping it into being what it is forever now. But even when I do that, I always pre-wash my fabric, which is another kind of, I'm bouncing a little bit, but it's because I think of something as I'm talking. I pre-wash all my fabric before I sew with it in almost every case, unless I'm using pre-cut strips or something like that. I want to know what's going to happen to it. I want to know, in all likelihood, it's going to be something I'm going to wash eventually. So I want to know, what is this going to turn out like when I eventually do wash it? So that's one of the reasons I wash it. The disadvantage of pre-laundering your fabric is that you do lose a lot of that starch that they already put in it, that finishing. So you do have to add it back in by doing, these other methods. So,
Absolutely. All right, here we go. Let me bring your list back up.
Okay. This is a good one. Match your hoop to your design size for a snug fit. Now this is, if you don't remember anything else, please remember this one, especially if you're new to embroidery. You may get an embroidery machine that's got a big hoop. You could practically hula hoop with some of these hoops. They're so big. And it's wonderful. When you need to do a big block or a big design, big element, you're going to want and you're going to need that big hoop. But don't stitch a 4x4 design in an 8x12 or 9.5x14 or 10 5/8 by 16-inch hoop, because all of that extra fabric around it isn't getting anchored down with stitches. So what happens is it tends to pull in. Okay. So, I'm a girl that believes in you can never have too many hoops. If there is a hoop out there that fits your machine, that's in an alternative size than an optional hoop that didn't come with your machine, go get it. Go get it. So you have it hanging on your rack, and when you're ready, you find a design that's close to 6x6. Why would you want to use your 8x12 hoop when you can put it in a 6x6 one? 5x7, that's fine. That's a good size, but not if your design is closer to 6x6. Now you need that extra inch. So go ahead and get those hoops. And what you're going to find is that every time you use them, you're going to be glad that you had it. It's one of those things, buy it when you see it and you'll have it when you need it, because it just makes a ton of difference when you're hooping. Okay.
That's true. I'm not very good at that, by the way, Joanne. I love the big hoop, but I'm usually trying to do a whole sleeve and not just even though it's built up a lot of different designs. But I think that is such a really important tip for more than one reason of making it successful. But also, a lot of people only have smaller hoops and they're thinking, I can't do these big projects because that's all I have. And that's not true. So that just kind of combined both of that right there.
Yes. In fact, that could be a future show, how to continuously hoop to create large designs. We could keep that for a future show, because I've always said no matter what hoop size you have, you can embroider from here to the moon as long as you know how to do proper placement. And I've proven that over and over again. I could dig out samples from ages ago. I've got a jacket in the closet that I wear often. You would like it because it's got a big giant lighthouse on the back. I mean, it's way tall. And I stitched that at a time when our hoops were only this big. And I did it just by linking the design together. So it can definitely be done. Okay. Yeah. So I hope everybody understands so far what I'm saying. If I've confused anybody, please let me know. Okay. So preset hoop tension. All right. What do I mean by that? Well, that one I'm going to actually demonstrate for you. Okay. So let's say we've got a t-shirt fabric here, and I've already backed this with another one of my all-time favorite stabilizers, which is the Brother Fusible Mesh. This has a bonding agent on the back of it. It's also kind of a flesh tone color, so it works really well even with lighter fabrics. And it's got, like I said, a really good bonding agent. And when I use this, what I like to do is cut a piece that is big enough to cover my entire fabric area. Obviously, if this was a t-shirt, it would be a whole garment, but I just cover, so it's going to fill larger than my hoop, extend outside your hoop. That's another tip that kind of pops into my mind when we're talking about this. Always make sure that your stabilizer extends outside of your hoop range. Okay, so there's an example of that. It's tempting sometimes to want to just stabilize the area where you're going to embroider. Maybe you're doing just a design, that's going to be about 3 inches in there. Well, you need all that stabilizer to be completely clamped in the hoop in order to get good results. Okay. So when I use this particular type of stabilizer, what I like to do is I like to just lightly fuse it so that it's there, it's stuck, and it's actually keeping my fabric from stretching or moving, but it also still allows me then to peel away that excess when I'm done. And then I will very often, the way I like to do it, when I trim the excess stabilizer, always leave yourself a margin. That's another tip. Always leave yourself a margin of stabilizer around your design. I like to leave about an inch. Some people like to do a little bit less. You could certainly do more, but always leave a margin. And another thing is never cut in between. So if you've got a design that's got nooks and crannies, leave that space totally filled with your stabilizer so that you don't have a chance of it collapsing in the areas where the fabric is lighter than where the design is. Okay, so that's another one. But then I can peel this back, and then I like to use pinking shears to trim the excess. That feathers the edge a little bit. And if you follow the Brother blog, we got news on the Brother blog too. We got to make sure we talk about before we close today. But if you follow the Brother blog, you'll see a variety of projects that I've done, t-shirts and that, where I show the backside and show you that exact method where I use that. So, okay. So what do I mean by pre-setting the tension of the hoop? This is another one of my, if you do this like almost all the time, especially on garments, you're going to have such a better success rate. What you're going to do is you're going to take your fabric, whatever stabilizer you need to attach to it. And let's kind of back up to what my tip was on number 3 on this. And that was make sure to always use stabilizer that bonds to your fabric if your fabric is thin or stretchy. And what that means is that you're either using some type of a fusible, temporary fusible, could be a permanent fusible, could be a fusible spray, but you want the 2 pieces whenever you have something thin or whenever you have something stretchy, you want those 2 pieces to be completely bonded together so that it has no movement, and it also thickens it up a little bit. And I see a question on temperature. Oh, iron temperatures are all over the map.
I saw that coming up.
So test that. Just do a little, test on a little bit of on a corner. Like I said, when you're doing it, the temporary fuse, you want it, mine's peeling away a little bit because I played with it so much. But if you can kind of see here, it takes a little tugging for me to peel that away, but it still comes off a little bit easier. So relatively low temperature with this.
And every iron is so different. So even if you said you were on a medium, somebody else's medium might be way hotter. So that's why.
Definitely. And then another thing you could do now, if I'm only doing small pieces like this, it's not really relevant. But if for some reason I'm using a large piece of a cutaway type stabilizer on a piece of fabric, I will take that piece, and before I even bond it, I'll just kind of like lightly steam over it so that it shrinks a little bit. And it's not that this type of fiber shrinks necessarily, but it could have been stretched tightly when it's on this bolt. Mm-hmm. And it could be kind of, it's stretched out a little bit, and you need to let it relax again because you don't want it to relax after you've embroidered on it. Okay. That's the same thing with fabric. That's another reason I wash fabric. People will buy things like fleece or knits, and they'll say, well, it's a knit. It's not, it's a polyester. It's not going to shrink. Yeah, but
yeah,
that was rolled on a bolt, probably by a machine, and it probably got stretched. And when you take it home and you just lay it on the table, it's probably not getting shrunk back up until it's actually been laundered. Okay. Edna's asking about the magnetic hoops. Magnetic hoops can be your best friend. And the new Brother one, by the way.
Oh gosh, I love that.
I mean, we could do a whole show just on that. That is another tip I'll just throw in. I think we're going to end up with 25 by the end of this rather than just 10. But that hoop with the magnetic, the way it's designed, the engineers just outdid themselves on that one. Because you've used it, I've used it, I've seen you use it multiple times on your shows, Angela. You could see when you put that fabric down and then you take those magnets and slide them over, the fabric automatically just goes, and it's perfectly set into that hoop so that it's snug, but it's not overstretched. And that's an important part. And that's where I'm going with this particular tip. So I'll go back to this. So,
Marianne, yes. Well, I pre-wash all my fabrics. And if also, Marianne, if you're using something that you aren't going to wash, that you're going to do have dry cleaned, that can still shrink. So if I have like a wool or something that I know that I'm going to be taking to the dry cleaners, take it to the dry cleaners and ask them to steam press it, and that will shrink it down. You can do it yourself as well, but a lot of times I take it straight to the dry cleaner because I know that's how it's going to be cared for. Because I usually go to the same one. And then I know that it's going to be exactly how it's going to be. I learned that the hard way that's a whole different series.
perfect information. I mean, you're prepping it is what you're doing. And we all know that in any kind of, task or even artistic work, it's your preparation that lays the groundwork again for your success. Catch Geraldine's question while I see it up here. I have a brother embroidery machine. What thread do I use in the bobbin for embroidery? Whatever thread your manual tells you to use, because there are two types. There are two weights of brother embroidery thread for the bobbin, and one is for embroidery only machines, and the other one is for the sewing and embroidery combo. So make sure you select the right one. And I'm a big fan of sticking with, not only because I'm a brother ambassador, but I'm a big fan of sticking with Brother makes brother thread for brother machines. And the brother bobbin thread is the best thread I have ever used. And I've tried other ones just to see what they do. There is none better. And remember that at the factory, when your machine was born in the factory, it was tested with that thread. So that's the best. That's absolutely the best. Deborah says, have you had the edges come loose after washing with the Fusible? If you didn't bond it really well, that could happen. And you know what? Most of the time you just iron over it again and you're fine. So the main thing is this was bonded together when you embroidered. The bonding isn't as important later. It's more important during the actual embroidery process. Okay, so hopefully that answers that. And can embroidery thread go in any sewing machine? You can use embroidery, like the top decorative embroidery thread, to do decorative stitching in an ordinary sewing machine for sure. Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely. That looks really cute. Joanne, you've done that a ton. Probably on the brother blog, there's some things in there when you're talking about decorative stitches and stuff.
Yeah, and the brother thread is polyester, so it's super strong, very color fast. It's just
it does not fade. In case you don't know what that means, it does not fade.
It absolutely doesn't. And you know what? I've proved that. I have actually embroidered coasters once on felt, and then I spilled coffee on it. So I used a really light bleach solution. And I'm not saying go home and do this, okay? But I did it. On the bottle, it tells you exactly what to do. Like use, 10 parts to 1 part water, and don't leave it more than 5 minutes, whatever it was. I followed the instructions. I'm good at following instructions. And I just, did that, took all the coffee stains out, and all of the brother thread still looked absolutely perfectly perfect.
That's
right.
I would rather not do that, but I probably would accidentally.
Okay, so back to this one, preset the hoop tension. So I've got this bonded to here. That's good. Okay, that's going to stay with the garment for the life of the garment. But I like to add, in almost every case, especially when I do t-shirt weight fabrics, I like to add a lightweight tearaway. Brother makes a wonderful tearaway. They actually call it medium. I say it's a little bit more lightweight, but it's the perfect way to use one layer floating under the hoop, or even married together and put it together in the hoop. So because it's soft enough. Now you never want to use a really stiff tearaway. This is the brother heavy tearaway. Can you hear the sound of the crunchy?
Oh, yeah.
It's very crisp and very thick. I say never use this in the hoop. Always use this floating under the hoop, because it buckles when you use it in the hoop. And that's part of the reason I've seen some of those misregistration problems. Somebody hooped a stiff stabilizer with their fabric, and their fabric moved and the stabilizer didn't. So that caused, things to be out of line. Okay. But this one is soft enough that you can do that. So let's say I want to layer this together and I want to put this in the hoop. Well, what we commonly do is we lay it on this is a little hard to do up rather than down, but you'll get the picture here. We layer it on the, the inner ring, the outer ring rather. And then we take the inner ring and we put that in, and then we play with the screw until we get it tight. Okay. That's what a lot of people do. A lot of us have done this. What you end up doing then, once you've got that in, is you end up having to tug. You end up having to pull because the hoop was probably very loose, which made it really easy for you to get it in there. But then your fabric was loose, so you had to do the tugging in order to get it smooth. What I recommend you do instead is layer that together, have your hoop loose, and I'm going to put this on the table so that I can do it. So you can't see what I'm doing right now. I'm just getting that in. It should be really easy to pop that in because your screw is loose. Okay. So it was really easy to pop that in. Now I can take my screw and I can tighten it up. And you're going to see I'm tightening that up quite a bit, which tells you what? My hoop was loose, right? And I would have had to pull that fabric to make it tight. Once I've done that, now I know what I've done is I've preset the tension. I have preset, I'm going to pop this out, the tension of this hoop so that the gap that is left now from me tightening this screw is perfectly suited for the layers of fabric that I want to put in it. So the first time around, I didn't worry at all about positioning. I just got it in there. The second time around, I would mark my fabric. I would carefully, line up whatever placement I needed. I'd put this, again, I'm doing it flat on the table here.
I can see over there just a little.
The next time around, you're going to find, like what I'm doing right now, I'm trying to try not to make any noises like, and I tightened that screw a little more after, so let me get this in here. Almost there. Okay. So that second time around was a little bit, wait, I popped it out. Get in there again.
A little tighter.
Okay. So that second time around, it was a little bit of an effort to get that in there, admittedly. Okay. But because my tension was preset, and you know what? I don't have any slack in there now. Now, sometimes depending on your fabric and your stabilizer and your combination, you'll have just a little bit of that, and that's okay. That's okay. You can do a little bit of snugging up, but this particular trick is priceless. It just really works well. And I see somebody asking, yeah, if you have like a silicone mat that you can put your hoop down on, that works really well to keep it from walking away on you. What about hoop burn?
Yeah, Marta had a really good one, because sometimes if they're using a bad fabric and they do that exact technique, they could have a problem.
Yes, great question. Great question. In my experience, I have found very few fabrics that leave a permanent mark from the hoop. Now, yes, if I pop this out right now, you might see a little bit. I doubt that you're going to see it on camera. You're just seeing the ridge from it. But you might see a little bit of this. So if I were testing this, you know what I would do? I'd pull this off. I'd throw it in the washer, throw it in the dryer, whatever I'm going to do. And I would say in about 99.999% of the cases, because it's a washable fabric, all of that hoop burn is going to go away. Okay. If you're really and truly concerned about hoop burn, then you want to use what I would call a hoopless method. And that would be either a Tearaway sticky paper that you pre-hoop. And I've got a sample of that in a second. Well, okay, I'll show you that now. Okay. I don't know where this tip is on the 10. It might be an extra one. But this is another tip for you, and that is always have your hoop filled with something, meaning either fabric or stabilizer that your fabric is then stuck to. So in this case, I didn't hoop this napkin because I didn't want hoop burn, although I could have. So that's a perfect solution for that. And then we also have I know, Angela, you and I probably go through miles of this stabilizer. This is again, you can't see it, but this paper would peel back. And this is the water soluble version.
I was going to say, it's got to be wash away something.
wash away adhesive backed wash away stabilizer. This is like your best friend when you just need to hold something down. Now remember though, you're going to do that with things that, maybe they're already pre-stabilized, or you're doing a lightweight design. They don't need a lot of extra stabilizer, but remember that both of these types, whether it's the wash away or the Tearaway, they are not stabilizing your fabric, only temporarily. So if you need permanent stabilizer for your particular project, you need to do something else. But they are acting as a hoop aid, as a hoop friend, so that you're able to float your embroidery design. So this is the method you want to use if you're concerned with hoop burn. So I could do the same thing with this, and I could have stuck this to there. It's also great, obviously, in areas like this where you can't completely fill the hoop. And what I mean by filling the hoop is it might be tempting, and I'd love to know if somebody's ever done this. Have you ever had a napkin like this and you go like, well, it almost fits. Almost fits. I'll just have a little blank space here and a little blank space here, but it's okay because I'm embroidering up here, right? And that's all hooped. Let's say this was all hooped. Well, that's still not so good, because this area, it now has movement because there's nothing attaching it. There's nothing anchoring it and holding it in place. So it'd be very easy for that to, again, pull, move, distort, and that's not what you want to have happen.
Exactly.
And yes, this is, Brother makes a sticky wash away and a sticky tearaway.
Marianne, I just saw that too.
Yeah.
I see a few other questions rolling in too, and I'm watching those. So at the end, I'll make sure I bring those up as well.
Okay. And we're almost through the 10 that turned into 25. Consider planned puckers. Okay. I've already talked about that one. That's number 9. And it could be even pre-quilted fabric. I'll tell you, this is another great testing fabric. If you find fabric that is pre-quilted, I like to buy this. My favorite thing to make with this particular fabric is just, it's got that bonding on the back. Kind of might remind you of a robe you had when you were, back in the 70s or whatever. They made a lot of robes like this. But it's cotton quilted to a layer of thin batting, and then it's got kind of a nylon kind of backing on it. This is great for testing samples, and it's with added tearaway, you can embroider almost anything on this fabric. My favorite thing to make with it is hanger covers. And I know, let's see, is Susan here? Susan had hanger covers on your show. I happened to catch, I didn't catch it,
She made a silk hanger cover using your pattern, your technique that she learned with her couture jacket that she made in my class here. It was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I just wanted the hanger to go with my other. It was such a great idea. And you've always done that, Joanne, but I never even, until I was sitting here looking at that. I mean, not that I didn't want to do it before, but now I definitely want to do it with my really expensive jackets that I make that are very expensive. What a great custom look in your closet. I mean, it was gorgeous.
It's so much fun. I got started on that with, I've been making samples for Brother for many, many years, but I got started on that when I had to do a whole set of white camisole style tops. I think I did 6, and they were all different. So they all had different embellishment. And when I went to send them off to Brother, I thought I don't know, they looked lonely. So I ended up taking this white fabric and I made a hanger cover for each one of them. And then I started doing that when I was doing magazine articles for every, so that I could store it in my closet. I would actually embroider, volume 67 or whatever in the name of the article. So I haven't done that for a while for some of my samples, but they make great gifts. Everybody loves a hanger cover with their monogram on it. If you want to, have some fun, do the days of the week. If you got somebody that's working every day or whatever, or kids' clothes, it's a great way to present, children's clothing when you finish. There's nothing prettier than a little dress hanging on a matching hanger. So
exactly. So hey, Joanne, just a few questions that are popping up that are kind of related to what we're doing, but have you ever found, because I have a whole stash, by the way, does sticky stabilizer have a shelf life?
I would say yes, but I would say it's very rare that you end up having some conditions with it. What I saw that happen. I had a friend at one time who she was really high up there in years, but boy, she was an embroidery enthusiast. She just loved embroidery, so she always had everything. She didn't get out. She didn't get out a lot. She still drove, but she didn't get out a lot because she was smart enough to know when she shouldn't be out there driving in the snow or whatever. So she stocked up on a lot of things. And I was at her house one day, helping her do some things, and we went to her closet, and way up on the top shelf, she had an old roll of adhesive-backed stabilizer. This was many years ago, and we pulled it down, and you know what? It lost its stickiness. But every time I was in her place, she actually lived in a community, retirement community. She had her own freestanding place, but it was always felt like it was 100 degrees.
I was just going to say, I bet it was hot in there because where you store it, the heat is, I would say 100% of don't store it in the sun, don't store it next to a window, and store it in a cool place.
Yep, it was in a hot spot, and the higher things are, the heat rises, so it had lost its tackiness. I've never had that happen to me, but my temperature in here is pretty like your studio. We like a certain temperature all the time.
I know. And I store mine in the safe. The safe is huge, and it's not temperature controlled, so it's always cool. It's the best storage facility ever.
That is great. And other stabilizers, like the water solubles, I tend to wrap my water soluble with some type of either if I can't put it in a plastic baggie, I'll actually wrap it with like a plastic wrap and just keep that around it, just to keep the air from getting to it. It's a smart thing to do. And Debbie's asking, is there a pattern for the hanger cover? I'm assuming is what she's asking.
I would guess.
And there's if you search It's So Easy TV shows, the brother sponsored It's So Easy TV. I definitely did that on the TV show, and I'm almost positive there's one on the brother blog as well. If you search hanger cover.
And so I put the blog down below. So I showed everyone last week how the blog has moved. It's to a new location. Go to brothersews.com, and if you scroll down to the bottom, that's where you click on the blog. I also have both of the full links for those that want to just write this down. It's I'll let it go for a few minutes because I can't get it to stop scrolling. But I think you had one on the blog as well, Joanne, but also they can just go to your website. You probably have this on your YouTube channel, don't you?
Yep, I sure do. Yep,
okay.
I sure do. Yep. And if you can't find it, you know where to find me. If you can find me, I'll help you find it.
Perfect.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. So then the number 10 out of the 100 that we've done is combine lightweight layers of stabilizer. So I've kind of already talked about that. This is a lightweight layer of stabilizer, and then I added another lightweight layer of stabilizer. If I felt that I needed to, I could then slip another lightweight layer under the hoop to just give a little bit of extra oomph to it. I'm another big fan of using interfacing on fabrics that need to be beefed up. So I've got a dress here. Let me get up and show you that. So we'll go just back through. We got a few minutes? Yeah, we got a few minutes. Okay, in this case, what I did with this dress is I considered careful placement. So I planned the placement so that I wasn't doing this design that's a little bit heavier all around the hem, because if I did, it would make the hem buckle out. So I did it as a panel in a princess seam, because that's just going to lay flat on the body. It's not going to mess up the drape at all. But
that dress is so cute. I'm bringing you, let me make you bigger. That is such a cute dress. Oh my God.
You know how much I love this princess style, because it's this particular style. If you have a seam, down the front, and I accented it with just a strip of matching knit fabric that matched the embroidery thread color, it flatters every single figure out there. It just looks good on everybody.
So cute.
Thank you. But in order to, give that fabric, it's a rather thin rayon knit, I interfaced that whole panel with a fusible tricot style interfacing. I know you're a big fan of that. I know you got several bolts of that somewhere in there too, for sure.
Yeah, I actually have that on my website now, because a lot of people, and it's 60 inches wide, because I couldn't stand that little narrow stuff. If I am less than a few yards in here, I have a panic attack. This stuff is awesome. I use it on everything.
I know, you got to have it. You got to have it. I worked in a fabric outlet store when I was really, really young, and they manufactured high quality garments in that same factory. I worked in the outlet store where they sold the fabric, but the garments were there as well. And they made a lot of silk blouses. Mm-hmm. This is the interfacing they used on all of their silk blouses. So it can be used on a wide variety of fabric. So I always have this on hand. Always have it in black and always have it in white, and keep it on hand. So, and then you can see though that I also added that, a cutaway mesh stabilizer to give it just another little extra. And you can see my trick for the pinking shear effect. And you can also see how I left all that stabilizer in there. So these are,
bring that a little closer. We couldn't quite see the pinking shears. Bring it a little, so and give the camera just there. Now we can. Yeah, the cameras just need to focus, and we can actually see the difference of the fabric underneath too, where you have the interfacing.
Yeah, and you could just see how it still has that beautiful, beautiful drape. So on another one here, I got another dress. This one's a full length. This is a maxi dress. So I'll let you see the top part of it first.
Oh, that's so cute. And so in style right now.
All the way up to the hem. So you can see the hem.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Okay. So now that's all along the hem. Well, I just told you I didn't do it on the hem on that one. What's the big difference here? This is a very, very lightweight design. These both were designs from my Wrapped in Embroidery book. And when I had the designs created for the book, I told them what kind of fabrics I was going to be stitching it on. So that goes back to, I think, our number one tip, which was compatibility is key. The design density of this design, I didn't tell them I was going to make it on a dress. I told them I was going to do on a rayon fabric for a wrap. So I needed to pick a design that was very, very open, very light, didn't have a lot of density, and could keep this fabric really nice, soft, and flowing. So if you know that your designs are going to match your fabric, that's great. If you don't, then you're going to have to test it out and use some common sense. But in this case, I also wanted to eliminate all the stabilizer. So you could either use the wash away, or I used an iron-on tearaway, and I got almost all the bits and pieces out of there. I still have a few more I can pull out. But again, I'm just able to maintain that drape. So it's all about, compatibility and picking the right thing. So let's talk compatibility again just for a minute here, okay? Here's a blouse that I made. This blouse was so much fun because, believe it or not, this could be a topic for another day. We never run out of topics. This was done using nothing but frame shapes built into every Brother machine.
Oh, wow.
This is a diamond frame shape. And I just obviously used two pretty colors. Close so you can see.
So cute.
Yep. And then this also, believe it or not, this was a frame shape that I stitched as a circle and then cut the circle apart and added it as a ruffle. And I just used my Brother serger to do a rolled hem on there to finish that off. But the whole key here is, again, this is a gauze. So I don't want this to feel like a I don't want to feel bulletproof in my embroidery. I don't want it to be stiff. So you have to think about compatibility. Here's another compatibility example. Again, designs from the book. This is a very silky fabric, and it's also an example of embroidering and then applying it on basically as an applique, because I didn't want to stitch all the way through this pashmina. So I did all my embroidery on the blocks, and then I simply covered the raw edges with ribbons. And then on the back side, so if you're wearing this scarf, you're going to see nothing but a few straight stitches with thread that match the pashmina, and you're not going to see the ugly side of embroidery because sometimes we have that side that isn't so pretty.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Everybody's saying gorgeous.
So samples are fun to see. If we were all in person, we could have a fashion show. That would be fun. But so here's another example. This is, again, it's a pair of pants, crop pants. Just simple.
Ooh, those are cute.
That's the front. That's the back. I like the fronts that have the. I like it when it has a flat space in the front part, and then the elastic goes around and continues around the back. But just wanted to dress up those pant legs. This is another one from the brother sponsored It's So Easy TV show. Let the camera focus on that for a minute. Come on, camera.
The camera's like, wait a minute, what is that?
Ooh, I think I got dizzy. That's funny.
Bring it closer, just a little bit closer. Sometimes it takes, I think that's it. There you go.
That's it. Okay, so guess what this is? This is a quilt embroidery design.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That is a built-in fill stitch, but because it's so lightweight, it's just made up of straight stitches. And by the way, I used the option that we got in one of the upgrades for the Luminaire, where we could choose just to have that be a single run instead of a triple run. So it creates a lighter, softer effect.
That's
so
beautiful.
You know, compatibility. So
I knew you would show me something I need. Every time I watch you, Joanne, I come up with something great. And I was just going into the guest, I say guest bathroom, the one that we never use, but when my guests are here, they always do. And my brother and the boys are coming. And I was like, oh, I got to put some towels in there. I should come up with something really fun. I should do that, what you just did there with the little fish icons on there. They would love that. They're going to be like, how did that happen? I'll put their name.
And you know, the other thing about those, I love those quilting designs, even though I wouldn't say that I'm like a big time quilter. I like to do a little bit of everything, but you know, we've already said, you know, on a desert island, I'd be making garments. That would be what I do if you got doing one thing. But the quilting designs, they have lots of life to be used. You know, they don't pigeonhole them. Don't put them in a quilting category only when you can use them in so many ways, because really all they are straight stitch decorative motifs. If you think of it that way, you know, you don't even have to call them quilting designs if you don't want to. So I hope I've inspired and educated and given you some interesting things to think about and and to test out in your own sewing space.
Joanne, this has been such great information. And I saw so many of you roll in later that said, how do I watch this? So again, don't forget, if you're watching on Facebook, which we are live on Brother Sews and Crafting Facebook and YouTube page. So if you're watching on Facebook, the easiest thing to do is to share it to your page. Now, Facebook is changing some of their pages, so things are moving around. So make sure you follow Brother Sews. Joanne and I would both love for you to follow us as well, but you have to click follow. Now, they used to have like, now it's follow. So if your option of both, do both, because it's all changing to follows. So then you won't miss the episodes and you can watch the replay. And also, if you're on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, or you can come back to YouTube anytime. I love watching on YouTube because I put it on my phone and then I bring it up to my TV and I binge watch all the sewing shows. I even watch reruns that I was on. I still love to watch.
Absolutely. You forget what you say sometimes, and everybody else chimes in, and so it's good.
Absolutely. So Joanne, that was awesome. So by the way, a lot of those designs are from her book. You can always message her. Some of you are asking about patterns, things like that of her dresses. Just message her. Contact her, because this is on Brother Sews and it's not a Brother product, but she would be more than happy to help you with that.
Absolutely.
I love that. That black dress is gorgeous, Joanne.
Thank you.
So Joanne, I guess I'll see you next week, by the way. We have a fun event next week coming up as well.
We do. Another embroidery event with a Brother dealer. So, yep.
Awesome. And if you sign up, Joanne has a wonderful newsletter. If you sign up for her newsletter, it comes out Sunday nights. Saturday nights? I always read it on Sunday nights. I don't know.
It's usually late Saturday night. Night, so most people read it on Sunday when they wake up.
Always filled with information, and I have one that comes out not as frequently, but I know that we're going to be sending information about that event, so you might want to follow that as well. So I don't see any last. Everybody's saying thank you, great information.
Just one other quickie. Lots of new things coming up on the Brother blog. Where they've successfully moved, but very shortly. New content will start rolling out. I'm working on new projects now, so lots more goodness coming on the Brother Stitching social page.
Joanne, I know we're over time, but we'll make it fast. Do you are you going to still be offering the free design of the month?
Yes. Yep. We got one coming for July. Yep. Absolutely. We're back on track. we had a little break. Actually, it was kind of nice to have a little break, catch up on some other things. But I'm revving to go now, and I've got a list all the way through October, believe it or not, of things to make for the Brother blog. So
awesome, awesome. And so, by the way, I went to the Brother blog, and I have that down below in case you missed that whole long URL. It's for the Brother Sewing and Crafting I have below there. Or you can go to Brother Sews. Let me bring that up again.
I think there's still tweaking a few things, so be patient. I think there's still a few little tweaks and polishing up to do, but it's getting
there are. But they have actually brought everything over, so you're not going to lose anything, or at least nothing that I've noticed so far.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice, and it's going to be really easy to search.
Very, very. That's a big, big, big bonus. The searchability. Yep.
All right. So I guess this is awesome. I don't see any last minute questions. If you do, you know how to find us. And also, Joanne, I'll probably see you on Saturday for free. We always try to pop in at noon for the It's So Easy episode. And for the rest of you that are watching the whole shows this week, this afternoon is Cindy Hogan with her stitching. Oh gosh, software shut-in. I can tell it's Tuesday. Yeah. It's a software shut-in. That's this afternoon at 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow I have a show at 1:30, and Emily has one at 3 p.m. all Eastern Standard Times. And then Thursday we are back here at noon. Jennifer Gleich will be on here, and she's got a whole list of projects she's going to be showing, so you won't want to miss it. So, and then Joanne, I'll see you on Saturday, assuming I'm not in the middle of the lake.
So happy to have everybody here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This has been wonderful. Good to see you all.
Excellent to see you. Cannot wait to see you next month, Joanne. See ya.
Happy sewing.
Bye.